Yeah. My new fashion statement. And how are you doing today? Hmm? Mhm.
He was really thinking. It was like being around some incandescent intellectual power. It was very stimulating, very exciting, and you could convey that to other people. And so he was a genius. I can't do that. I don't know. To the background structures, policies, practices, market values that were put in place, the background stuff that was put in place to differentially shut different groups to different possibilities. Even if I equalize social class today, within one generation we would start to see a stratification again by race in terms of social class. And so I need to institutionalize racism. I also need to say that it can be through acts of doing, acts of commission, as well as acts of not doing, acts of omission. And very often, institutionalized racism shows up as inaction in the face of the second level of racism, personal mediated racism, I define as differential assumptions about the abilities.
And good morning, good evening, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, wherever you are around the world. And here it is, the 20-something of July, and the 1st of August will be Saturday. Today is Monday, so about a little less than a week. And at the end of the month, I have usually no money. I don't get my Social Security check until the mid-week, right? I mean, mid-month, right? So I'm not going to have any money until, the 14th, 15th of August, right? So no going out to here. So this is going to be one of my last shows for a while because it's, cost me at least $8 for breakfast because I got to buy something to use their YouTube. I mean, their Wi-Fi, and cost me about $1.50 gasoline, right? So, and I got a lot of canned food. And Missy, God bless her, she's got a great. She's everything Missy does. She's great. She's the head chef and bottle washer. This place would not be open without Missy. And she gave me a big bag of squash. So that'll be nice. I'll have fresh vegetables. So anyway, so today's show, first off, I do have a PayPal account. It is hooked up to my the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. I never really ask for anything. I never really advertise. I don't every 30 seconds say, subscribe and hit that bell. Well, I would say subscribe and hit that bell. A lot of people tell me that they're not being notified. So I guess you guys got to keep hitting that bell. And so one of the people here gave me this book. Her brother wrote this. And it, in a certain way, seems very Southern, but it doesn't. It's really quite a good book. It's very scholastic in essence, in that it doesn't really. You can tell this guy's a Southerner, but no, he basically lays it out. I mean, and I read fast, so I read more than half the book while eating my sandwich this morning. But here are the chapter names. Looking back, looking forward, 8 classic examples of civil wars, um, 4 stars still flying in the Confederate flag, alternate names, Civil War, Confederate statistics of defeat, states that had the most engagements, battles with 2 names, Civil Wars, 22 popular songs of Civil War. They're pretty much all Southern songs. Century figures, the war, 32 famous war heroes, early slave trade and the rise of sectionalism in America. That was a pretty good chapter. resignation slavery. And again, that's a very good one too, because he kind of really says, hey, America was a slave butcher country, from the beginning, from the 1600s. Expansion and rise of abolition, and that's a really good chapter because he goes on about how abolition was a fake, and that it was just a business plan, and that so this is a very good book, and he's got some pretty amazing photos. I mean, look at this, Antietam, wherever that was. Still to today, even after World War II, World War One, Spanish American War, Civil War, more Americans died than any other war that America had. Well, because people on both sides were Americans, and so it's pretty. So this guy, obviously, he's a big Civil War book because he spends 80% of the book describing every battle and how they did it and where they ran to and who did what and da da da, which is okay, like I said. So it's not an apology. It's not a you know the South was great, the North was terrible, right? It was a good book. I give it a B, right? I just wanted to read you a little bit of where Outlaws and Raiders, which is a really good one. It's very because it's just like Black Lives Matter. It's really quite interesting how nothing is old. It's always pretty much the bottom line. Let's see. Let me do. He doesn't really have. The interesting thing. Okay, here. William Clark Cardwell was probably the most notorious of the raiders and bushwhackers to emerge from the intentional warfare that took place along Kansas-Missouri border during the war, together with Bloody Bill Anderson, George Todd, and all these guys are pretty much Southerners. And because that's the only way they couldn't fight the industrial might of the North, so they had to be like the Vietcong, but worse. The high point of Carl's career occurred on August 11th, 1862, when he and his men captured Independence, Missouri. 4 days later, Carl received commission as a captain. His men were officially mustered in as participants, rangers in the Confederate Army. Eager for additional accolades, Carl traveled to Richmond during the winter of 1862, but he was frustrated in his attempt to receive any further official recognition of the activities of his unorthodox approach of killing everyone. So this is a very good book. Again, B plus, and if you're a real fan of the Civil War, it's a very good because it really talks about every battle, everything, and so do 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 do. Do. Here's a good one.
And completely lied. So you want to see how Twitter does not regulate fake speech? Want to see? So those goons in Portland that Trump is sending from the Department of Homeland Security without proper signage that they're police or whatever, they're just in camouflage arresting people and throwing them in the back of the vans and not charging them. That's being funded by the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi, even though they pretend to oppose it. Well, do you know that those goons don't have any special training to do this? So
I mean,
the New York Times
would you
reported
think
that
otherwise?
they don't have any
Come on.
special training. Well, the Department of Homeland Security, see there it says federal officers deployed in Portland didn't have proper training. Rather than tamping down persistent protests in Portland, Oregon, Chloe's tweet
That's a good one.
pick-me-up story. That's really sad. She's 84 for F's sake. She should be spending her days relaxing and doing a hobby she loves. The next one, 84-year-old. We're being ruled by people who are evil. That's just a fact. Your democracy has already been taken from you. This idea that you're going to vote your way out of this is not real. And it's just sad that there isn't a leader in this country worth a shit. There isn't a leader in this country that has the balls it takes to get anything done. I've got more balls. I tell the truth about Russiagate, and the other people who know the truth are afraid to tell it. The politicians who know the truth are afraid to tell it. They're gutless, ballless, fucking self-serving climbers inside the party.
So did you think it would be any different? Come on. It has been this way since
persistent protests in Portland, Oregon. A presence from federal officers seems to have. So the Department of Homeland Security's official Twitter account tweeted the story out and lied. And completely lied. I told you, where's the greatest source of fake news? It comes from the government. The second greatest source of fake news comes from the establishment media. CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post. The third source of fake news comes from wingnuts everywhere else. But the biggest source of fake news, government, establishment media. Department of Homeland Security tweeted this out. They go, the reported information is incorrect. All Department of Homeland Security government components cross-designated to defend federal facilities in Portland had their training records reviewed to ensure their task missions aligned with their appropriate training. In addition, they say back down here, it says, in addition, FPS ensured all these component law enforcement officers received additional training for their deployment in the city for FPS missions. So not only were they reviewed that day, but they got extra training. That's Department of Homeland Security, except that's 1,000% of a lie. And how do I know? Well, because here's the Department of Homeland Security memo that they sent.
enough. So, here we are, 14 minutes. So there's a good old my puppy dog AI. How you doing, buddy? So, hey, good morning, good evening. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland, wherever you are. It's about 10 a.m. here. And this is, you probably won't hear from me for a while because I'm running low on capital and to come here I have to buy breakfast. And that's about $8. And though I love the way it tastes, and they let me sit here in the corner, and it's all good. I don't have any money anymore. So, hey, go to the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. My PayPal is there. Why don't you drop something in? Just $5, $8, then I could have breakfast. $10 so I could pay for gas. Now I do this, obviously not to make money. I wouldn't be bad if I did. I'm not against it. And but I live out in the middle of nowhere. And where I live, um, it's 200 square miles of super duper Appalachian poverty, and pretty much 99% of them are white folk, and they're way worse off than So they've closed down what little medical anything we have. So I have no medical anything. The state has made it so I can't buy my drug, so I basically have not been able to get my diabetes drugs, my blood pressure drugs, my cholesterol drugs, I have about 5 things wrong with me. But because I have been meditating and focusing my energy and also breathing through my nose, in through my nose and out through my nose. When you breathe in your nose has about 5 different filters, right? And it also puts the air you're breathing in to the perfect temperature for your lungs to use the prana. Whereas if you breathe it into your mouth, it's either too hot or too cold or a bunch of gunk in it. And so I've been actively really focusing on breathing through my nose. And so where I live, it used to be there's a gigantic seam of iron that goes really from Pennsylvania to Georgia, and it goes right through our county. And I mean, right where I am, it goes above the ground. It's like, from airplane you can see it, big, big thing. One time, a friend of mine had a gas balloon, and he took me for a flyover, and it was quite interesting to see that. So it is part of what they call as the world grid, right? And so energetically, some pretty intense stuff, and that's why I'm about, as the crow flies, 60 miles to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where Fermi had his little science experiment, and and part of it was because the all of that science and physics was alchemy, making all the different chemicals, and that's why just over there from me is Kingsport, where Kodak Chemical is, and it is, forget any of the other chemical companies, they are off the hook, right? And they have 2 things there that are like scarier than almost anything. They have the world's largest tank of liquid propane and the world's largest tank of liquid natural gas, right? And with this Corona whoopee thing, they are now on a scarecrow. They're not going full bore, right? I mean, they're still producing, but they cut, 80% of their workers. So all the element of worker safety, all the element of environmental control. So they have been burning their waste products instead of legally getting rid of them. And when the wind blows, it's like wow, it's like a sci-fi movie because it kind of yes, I'm a good 60 miles, so it kind of comes up. But we had a really bad storm the other day, Friday night. We had about 8 inches of rain, like in 6 hours, give or take. And luckily, when I woke up in the morning, the sun was, it was like thick, but the sun was out, and so it was very strange, and you could feel this particulate matter glowing in the air, And I went back into my man cave and locked it down and waited till the sun came a little higher and burnt that away. Um, but what's truly interesting, because of this metal rod, right, and it goes right through my property, is that the school that the canary bought in Roanoke, that is a very that hill is one of Cherokee's you know sacred areas, And um, but this place is more than sacred. It is super energetic. So it affects everyone. So I'm there and I'm like in the service to love's co-creation. So it's like patting me on the head and being nice to me. And so there's more bugs than you can ever friggin' believe. And and like and that's one reason I cleared out my little thing so the sun would hit it because it's a rainforest. So you know the tree canopy covers the ground. The ground is like mushy and wet and bugs love it. And when I cleared off my little thing, I laid down, you know, French drain so the water would go away, and I covered it up, everything, with like on a construction site, you would have crush run, so the trucks and cars don't go through. Well, I didn't build anything on it, and so um, I planted grass seed, and over the last 15 years, I've got a nice lawn there. And I had a nice garden, and then I got real sick. I couldn't do that. So this year was my first year of having a garden in 8 years. So I have to rebuild everything up. And I planted flowers, and they, did somewhat nice. I mean, so I have a lot of, and I threw the flower seeds into the hill. So the hills are covered with all kinds of flowers. And I have, little flower beds with things that'll be bushes one day and with flowers on them. So, and I basically let everything do what it wants. I don't try to control it. When it's real hot, I got hoses out. I mean, my hoses are so leaky, so I threw one of my leaky hoses over my garden and a couple over my flower beds, and that leaks enough water that they like it. And I'm in a rainforest, so pretty much every afternoon we have a thunderstorm. So everyone's happy. And the bugs are just like right over there. So there have been a lot of people driving through my, uh, you know, forest road lately, summertime. And I kind of sit on the side of the road with my Mickey Mouse banjo and pretend I'm the character from Deliverance. And squeal like a pig. You got a pretty mouth, boy. And I talk a mountain, each unk two by snake, I know, so kind of scare the tourists. And I usually meet them in golden lame hot pants and nothing else, except big army boots that go up the middle of my thigh. So the other day, this guy stopped and he was talking to me. And it was truly amazing because all of the bugs, and he's in his Land Rover, and he thinks he's really hot stuff. And he goes, "How long have you been?" And I, kept up with a hunk to that's a Cuba, And he goes, "So how long have you been here?" I said, "Oh, the 19 generations. I'm actually an African American that's melanin challenge." And this, I just kept going on and on and on. And the bugs went into his car, and because he was talking to me, so his windows down, and I hear and his wife is sucking on her vape thing, and as she's sucking it, it kind of sucks a cloud of no-see-ums into her thing and goes right down her throat. And she's really tugging on her vape thing, and it was like, and she was obese, and she screamed, but she couldn't because she wouldn't let go of the vape thing, and she had a throat full of no-see-ums, and she tried to get out of the car, and she got stuck because she was obese, and she was, and I just kind of looked at his wife, and she was, and they went stop, where when the guy dug this forest road, it's not a highway, it's just 8 feet wide, and there's cliff on one side and a real deep drainage ditch on the other. So she got out and she fell into the drainage ditch into a raspberry thicket. And then the guy got in there, and he got out the other side where the cliff, and he fell down. And if I was really that, you know, deliverance guy, these guys were like delivered. Then I could have driven away in their car. And and so I just walked away. Just went out, under a tree, about 20 yards from them, and I sat there with a nice cocktail and watched these people, just. And he rolled around up that cliff down in the forest and went through poison ivy, and then he smashed into a tree with a hornet's nest in it, and it was like unbelievable. Then other people in their Range Rovers and Humvees came, and because he was parked right in the middle of it, they were stuck. They couldn't go one way or the other because they had to keep going to the end to turn around because it's a pretty steep hill, and there's a cliff on one side and a big ditch on the other, and to back up these boys. Anyway, so I'm just watching it. It's like friggin' believable. And so, and the guys they were just stuck in the car and they didn't get out to help those other people. It's unbelievable. And that is a perfect metaphor to what we're going through, right? So I still didn't help them, right? I just waited till they crawled out, and then when they were trying to figure out about the cars, I said, "Can we drive in your driveway?" And I said, "No, you can give me $20, I'll let you do it." And they were like, "What?" And I said to one guy in the Range Rover, "Well, you're gonna have to back up into that end of that cul-de-sac, and the people can come around you, turn around there. Otherwise, $20, because I had no money, So they did it, and a couple other people drove off the side into the ditch, and it was just a cluster F, right? It was unbelievable, and those, are the people who are running our country. That is a good example of the leader class, and that's when you have, Darwin economics, where the rich rule and run. Now you look on the left, and it's Bernie Sanders. Please, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and what is he saying about single payer health care or health care for everybody? Zero. He's saying vote for Biden. And who is Biden? Biden. He said, you think you're going to vote for, then you're not. He said that to a black guy. If you're going to vote for Donald Trump, then you're not black. Meaning he's the only black guy can vote for him. And if anybody looks at Joe Biden's, he was the guy instrumental during the Bill Clinton years of, having the jail population go from 700,000 to 6 million. He was the guy, responsible for, mandatory minimums. He was the guy in charge with all of that, get rid of welfare, You go look at his senatorial career, what he had voted for. When he was first in there, he was against the Voting Rights Act, Delaware was part of, so, and where it is it's, there's this whole thing of white fragility. And white fragility is, when you ask any white person about things of color, they freak out, So it's, So, what do you guys? There's two of you there now. So, anybody want to say anything? I'm in a place. The last time I tried, I was in this parking lot of a church where they had Wi-Fi, and that was fun because they used to try to say that they served like Jesus. And so for about 4 weeks at the beginning of this pandemic, they gave out food, right, to a little box like this, little box. You had 2 rolls of toilet paper, and it had, something like a nice, sanitary soap and 3 or 4 cans of this. And they had somebody in their church had a really nice bakery, and so they had a nice loaf of bread. But a few other nice little savory things, which was nice once a month, one little box. That's when I found out their Wi-Fi because they have a big mega church, a gigantic parking lot. So they were dumping their Wi-Fi um, into the thing, right? So um, when you saw that thing, basically what happened was I went there and I used to park at the top of the hill so I could get a really good phone signal, and their Wi-Fi was, even though I was far from the building, I was actually closer because I was up in the air. And anyway, um, so I was up there the last time before this time, and someone said, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't be up there." I said, "Okay." So I didn't argue. I just said, "Let me just finish it." So I did, and next time I came, they have a place where it says, um, guest parking. And this is beautiful. Welcome to Jesus's love. We just love it that you're here and you're part of our church. And this whole thing on this sign of guest parking, right? You know, you are our guest, right? So I saw that, and so I parked there. And so that day when it rained, um, the I started the show, and they got TV cameras everywhere, so they came out and they saw that I was back and can't miss my car. And so I came back, and it was really great because when I came out the door, it was just kind of the cloud was just kind of going over, so it's like just heavy mist, right? As they walked across the parking lot and they got closer and closer to me, it started to rain and rain and rain. And by the time they got to me, it was really raining. And so they were knocking on the window, tap, 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 tap. And I ignored them completely. I was just, talking to you guys. And a gigantic lightning bolt crashed, and, they ran back in. And then they turned off the Wi Fi. And that's something a good Christian would do, especially after welcome to our church. We're here to serve Jesus and all who need His love, and we're here. We're a church of services. So they stopped giving away food. They stopped. They had a little clinic. They got stopped that, and I asked them when I rolled around to get my little box, and they didn't. And we don't have it anymore. So why not? I said, well, we decided we're just going to help the members of our church. I said, nobody else, the members of your church are all rich. I mean, look at look at this place. It's like the golden calf, look at all the artisans who work here. Everyone's got, a Lexus or a Beamer and that's when they started to get a little huffy with me. This one was, you a socialist? No, no. Sorry, kids, because capitalism, we don't really live in a capitalist state. What we have is, we don't have capitalism as an economic. So we live in a capitalist state. It's where capital owns the state. Period. And the socialist countries, they're not socialists. They are they are is state capital. One capital owns the state. The other is the state has all the capital. And China, why we're pissed off with China is that they basically, their economic system is what Germany did, meaning they don't borrow money from Mr. Rothschild. They print their own money without any interest in it. Nobody's borrowing money to spend the yuan. And the other thing that they do that let's see who's there. Fish. Hey, good morning. So, here in America, we'll sell anything. We have the best legislators money can buy, you know, not in China. They will let, what's interesting about China? China, over the last 10 years, has bought 40% of all the real estate that was sold. 60% of all the real estate sold in Donald Trump's um, businesses, his enterprises, were sold to Chinese. You know, if he really was all that dead set against the Chinese, he wouldn't sell it to them. But no, man, right? And all those, Sunbeam and Kleenex and all that, they sold all those things to China. You know, so um, we are in interesting times, and the socialist economists, like Noam Chomsky and his clan, are all like, "Ooh, goody," capitalism gonna just, it's a dead thing anyway. It should have died, and not really. And it's like Nazi Germany. End of World War II, the German people were bombed in the Stone Age, but the Nazis won. They came to our country through Operation Paperclip, 70,000. 70,000. That's who built our CIA, the NSA, ONI, all of that is Nazi guys. NASA, Werner von Braun, the poster boy. So, what can I say? It's right in front of us. And you got Steven Spielberg knocking out movies, being he's part of the Tavistock Institute, getting everyone's subconscious ready for, this, Hunger Games. He didn't do that, but that movie, Player One, everyone wearing their goggles, not, living in a virtual reality. Well, their social structure is totally, caved out by the rich. He is the version of, Orson Welles and H.G. Wells. Both those guys came from moneyed folk, and all the stories they told were the stories about, hey, this is what we want to happen. Orson Welles, not Orson, H.G. Wells, and the guy who wrote 1984, and the guy who wrote Brave New World. These were guys who were saying this is the way it should be, or it's gonna be. What are you gonna do about it? Yeah, what are you gonna do about it? In my whole life, I've spent trying to change the world, but I realize you can't change the world by going, you have to change the world. No, you got to entertain, you got to be fun, you got to make it. I was showing. So some friends came to visit me, and I told them exactly how to get there. Did they listen? No, they listened to this, right? And this told them to go in one way into the forest road, which is like a road like this that nobody takes. So it's got gigantic potholes you lose a car into. And I told them, don't do that. Come up this road and jump into there. And it's only 4 miles from that, and it's all flat. It's not like this, right? They do that now.
Finish your coffee, guys. I'll get you some.
So it was. So they drove all the way 200 miles to come visit me, and they got stuck. They were yelling in the woods. I could hear them. I said, you should have. Why didn't you come? Well, we had to listen to our smartphone. I said, okay, good luck with that. And the universe there is one big trickster. So they basically, and so these guys who got stuck on the road, there's another set of Tweedledum and Tweedledee, came and who else is there? Experience through gratitude. Hey there, Ride. How you doing, buddy? Abundant heart. Yep. And so Ride, Are you reading my xratted.blogspot.com? Because I'm working on a new novel called Legend. And I think you'd like that. I'd love your feedback on it. I really would. Right? So go on to xratted.blogspot.com and oh yeah, you're a dog boy. Yep, woof woof. You know, I've always been a dog boy. Oh, so you did read that? You're a dog boy. Yep, yep, yep. So what do you think of that stream of consciousness? And so I'm up to number 10, meaning I started writing it and I put up a few. So I'm letting the audience read the progression of me writing the book, not giving you the final thing that's been edited and is perfect. No, it's like I'm letting you see and also offering you the opportunity to jump in there and give me some assistance. And Ride, what do you think of my whole concept of that? Grammar is just a yardstick. Don't measure your life by it, and that spelling is just a spell, like the poison apple. Don't eat it. So I use grammar, really bend it around in ways that people would go, but I'm doing it on purpose to make a point. Like the Hebrew Torah, everything in legend is a key. People wonder, oh, I want to know how to, look at books and find the key. Well, read my novel. It's like I lay it out really right in front of you. Can't miss it. Take a look. And even at points where I think people might have a problem, I put an asterisk and tell you to go to the end of the book where the um, you know the controlling general is. It describes everything. Anything with an asterisk, there's an explanation in the at the end of the book, right? Is consciousness of free will expanding into infinite for sure. Yep, pretty much. That's kind of what it is because I kind of feel like I do the show. I meditate and before I sit down at the old laptop and click away, I go into state, and that's why I go into jazz. And you can see my writing. It's like it does have a thread. There are lots of threads. It's like a tapestry. There are all these threads through this thing. All these different characters doing, uh, you know, Damica, you know, um, who is that bitch, and BJ, Job, JB, um, and all, the old crones in there with their crow and, you know, uh, the whole Dick family and everybody else, Tiom and Rainbow Family of Living Light. You like that grammar. Yep, yep. Bag of water, bandit tradition. Yep. Well, that is that whole thing. It's being written by the great social seer, Pluggy Boom Boom. That's what my sister used to call me when I was like could crawl and stick knives into the outlet and blow out the electric system of a house. I think I did that 4 times. Let's see. Get you out of your bag of water and abandon tradition. Yeah, and that's what we're going. That's what is needed to. Humanity's not going nowhere. In Hamlet, my most striking line in Hamlet is when he's gone through hell and back again, and he's sitting there with his buddy, and he, yes, you lost your girlfriend, yes, you lost everyone you loved, yes, you stabbed everyone in the back, yes, everyone in the kingdom hates you, but look, you're in the big seat, you're and Hamlet goes, yeah, so now what do I do? All I got is tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. That's what it is. He had nothing else to look forward to. He might as well eat his gun, but he didn't have a gun. So, And that's where we're at. Everyone is like, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. They're really having a hard time. And now everyone's stuck in their house and they can only watch Prime. And yep. So, and that's what that is. I channel all the the legend all the way through it, and tell these little vignette stories and give you vignette characters, and they all represent archetypes. It's all about archetypes. I'm like Virgil mixed with Joseph Campbell and James Joyce on acid. It's and I have other novels up there, and I have a friend of mine who used to work at Doubleday, and he reads the stuff, and he gets a hoot out of it. And I said, listen, you're a friggin' editor. I need an editor. He goes, no, you don't. I said, well, nobody reads this stuff. He goes, well, you're not writing it for Joe Q Public. You're not writing this to make money. Obviously, you are writing this for the ages, and because you like to write it. You wouldn't want. I said, he goes, you've been a writer as long as I know you, 40 years, and you spent 25 of those years working for the corporate world, writing them these reports on what was going on. And he goes, you used to write kind of like this to those guys, so they could be somewhat amused and get it onto their higher level of their consciousness, So I appreciate that. Yep, the mezzanine is always looking upon me. Yep, right up there. And it has been my whole freaking life, And that's okay. I mean, that's kind of fun, With the powers that be appreciate you so they don't knock you off. I know a lot of people who thought they were so smart. I knew a number of endocrinologists and virologists who are dead. They just got in their car and it blew up. Must have been a short circuit somewhere. I mean, the cops wouldn't, no one would ever investigate. And all those people, so I have friends who are those things, and they don't call themselves that anymore. I'm just a GP, a general practitioner. Anyway, so, Oh, Carolyn, I read this book.
You read it?
I'm a quick read.
Okay.
And it's, when I started out, I thought, oh, this is just going to be some Southern guy to go on about. No, it's not.
Just facts. Yeah.
And not just facts. It's like almost a baseball game, right? But he does make really clear points about what was going on. The Raiders and the Marauders, that was an interesting chapter. And, the whole thing about, the one thing he kind of alludes to the real reason of the Civil War. It really wasn't. I mean, that's why we're going through the problems now, because the same thing that was going on then is going on now. It's nothing to do. It's about the means of production. Who owns us is really what it's about. And the guys in the South, they didn't want freedom. They wanted to be the guys to own it. The guys who owned the land. They didn't want to. No. The only reason they were semi-nice to their slaves is that the slaves out. They were like, it names all the states. This state has 20,000 white guys and 300,000 black guys. So they couldn't be off, And so, no, that was a pretty good book. I give it a B+. But I like the way he laid it out. And like he left big holes that he could have put that information in to make a context. But maybe it takes more effort to put it in context. Yes. And then he would sell even less books. But you know who that book is for? That book is for people who do those war reenactments. because that's like you could stand there and go, okay, you're going to stand here and you're going to do that, because it really puts it out. I mean, that's like a reenactment handbook.
I haven't read it. I've been reading other stuff, but Richard did.
Rich read it. Did he like it?
I don't know. He reads a lot. He doesn't always.
He never gives your opinion.
He likes history.
Right. Well, his history is his story. You know what I mean? Thucydides was the daddy of written history, right? The first guy. Everybody else just told stories like Plato and Euripides and those guys. Thucydides wrote it down, right? And someone said to him, "So what is history?" And he said, "Whatever the Romans pay me to write, and that's history. Whoever's got the money writes the history." Anyway. Let's see. Yep. So all my days were out of time. Like yesterday was a great day. I did nothing, except stand by the side of the road when the people in the Land Rovers went by, and I just kind of played with my Oreos, and they were like scared. Come back now, here. I'm just like a cheeky monkey. That's me. I'm a cheeky monkey. I mean, I used to take friends who I didn't like to the New York zoo, and I would take the one in Central Park, and I would take them to the monkey house. And there was a thoroughway through the cages that the guys who worked there were. And if you knew which, off the main drag, there'd be a door right there. It was never locked. You go in there, you could walk to the other side of the monkey house, and you were right there with the monkeys. And so I would basically, and the other door was locked because it went out into where the big lions were, and you shouldn't go there. But this one they never locked it. And I would take people and I would say, "Oh, you will really like this." And I would basically, send them in, and then I wouldn't walk in with them, and I would hold the doorknob, and they would walk down. As soon as a monkey saw them, they'd turn around and start throwing their feces at them. And there was no like plastic thing between the bars. It was like just the bars. And so they would be covered in monkey feces. And that usually, that's how a friendship that I wanted to get rid of, where the people just wouldn't take the hint. And because I really can't be that mean of a guy. I can't say bad, I can't I can't not tell you the truth or be straight up or be, and most people, they don't even hear that. It's like Charlie Brown and I'm the teacher, and all they're hearing is wah, 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 wah. But once I make you walk down the hallway and then hold the door shut and the monkeys cover you in feces, then you kind of get the inexplicable answer of, okay, Al's not I'm not talking to that guy ever again. No matter how cool he is or what I think I can get out of him. Nope. That was usually... Yep, much like the dumps, the Aberration at the dump pit. Yep. Well, Ride, you have read my stuff. I appreciate that. Not everyone does, because it can scare people. So, we've been going on for an hour. It's about 11 a.m. So I'll keep going. See if a few more people show up. How about a few more thumbs up? Again, why don't you go to the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail and drop something on my PayPal just to see if it works. I mean, I go to my computer guru and he checks it out. It still seems to be all hooked up. Should work. I said, why don't you send me $5 just to see if it works? Oh, I can't do that. I said, what do you mean you can't do that? It's $5. You're working. You got a, as my mother would say, a very important job. And that's praise Jesus. You like that hat? I've had this for a while. this is the new American logo. They should go into a bank looking like this. See how they react. Well, you can't go into a bank, you know. All the banks are. You can go into a supermarket. You know, you can go into a bar. You can go to a movie theater. You can't go into a bank. They don't want you in there. They don't want, so they put little TV cameras on all the succubuses, you know. And so whenever I go there, I just drive into this one place and just keep hitting the button. Stop bothering us. Just keep hitting the button because it must ring pretty loud in there. And I'm the only one here, and I just keep hitting the button, Now, and that cheeky monkey. Ugh. Oh man, I saw a couple of pictures of Donald Trump, where the wind blew his hair. But that's like a mechanical device, his hair. And I think it's a life form from outer space, and it's actually controlling his brain. And it has been for a long time. And he must have a spray booth up there in his house, and because his skin is this crazy kind of the color of the shirt, reddish orange, right? But when his hair blows back, and he's got nothing back here, his whole white skin is like pockmarked, and he looks like Mr. Burns. I mean, that's the character in The Simpsons. Mr. Burns is actually. Oh. Now it should be. Well, look at that. Happened right at 57:57. Let's see. Uh, yeah. So, but my friends who came to visit finally got there, but it was kind of interesting because the the trickster energy kind of got them because they were like only 15 feet away, but I'm surrounded by these. They tried to go through the woods. I said, "Don't do that! Don't do that! Don't!" And then I started hearing them go because they were getting kind of prickled by the prickers, and life goes on. Yep. So I probably, I don't get my Social Security check until mid-August. So and I don't know how much money I have in the bank, and that's why I don't use it because I don't want to, put my bank account down to zero, and then they close it out, and then I, have to figure out some other way to get my check deposited. So there's probably about $100 in there, but once it gets down that low, I have to, just eat canned food. Except Missy, it was nice to bring that. So, what else? How's it going in your neighborhoods? Are people dropping like flies? Around here, I mean, I still, I sit in the corner, and they moved the fan, so I went and got a fan and put it in my corner to blow everyone's in. I'm good 40 feet to the nearest table. So, but nobody wears. I mean, they do. They wear masks like I've been wearing it. Like a fashion statement. But when I come close to people, I do put it on. And it's more ceremonial than anything. My respect. So. But that's the thing. I'm going to leave this with you guys. Breathe through your nose. Even the out, breathe out, because then you're blowing the crap out. And again, that's another thing. To do it, you have to be focusing the little squirrel in your head on breathing through your nose. You don't have to breathe in 20%, 30% out, unless you want to go into state, because that changes a whole bunch of metabolism and other physiological things in your body when you do that. But just, again, your nose is an amazing device. It's senses things. The last sense in your body when you die. Being an EMT guy, and yesterday I was telling this one guy, he was like driving, he was a teenager, and I tell him a couple of stories of people that, as an EMT. In my job, I was the guy who did triage. I drove the big truck. I was trained to drive the big truck, but I didn't run the truck. There was an engineer who ran the pump, but I drove it there because I lived across the street. So I was able to get in that truck, go to the site, and we had a GPS, and that was the 1980s, 1990s, late 80s, and so I get there. By that time, other members of the firehouse would get there in their car, and they would be seeing what it is and they would have the orange cones in their things and the flares, and they'd start putting it out to put a barrier around us. And our house was right where two interstates crossed. Instead of having a clover leaf, they just did this. And it's the boat boys.
What you say, bud?
Okay, I thought you'd be done. So this one accident we came. Basically, what happened was this lady in a soccer mom van was going down the road this way. Big truck came this way and kind of clipped it on the side and spun the car around, and it smashed into an oncoming car head on. So both cars, and they were like swirling around this way, and it pushed. When the truck hit it, it hit it on the side in a way that it broke whatever kind of structural integrity that car might have had to not. It dented it, right? And so when it went straight on, it pushed the engine into the driver's, front seat, and it pushed the steering column through the mother, all the way through her, through the seat, into the daughter behind, through her neck, and it snapped the head off. And it went into, the lap or next to the girl sitting next to her, and that girl freaked out so much that she put her head through the window and cut her. She sprayed, the two girls sprayed everywhere. And there was a little girl of about 9 in the passenger seat, and she was the only one wearing her safety belt. And the engine didn't go into her, it went into her mom, but it pushed the front of the windshield right against her, so she couldn't get out. But she wasn't hurt. She was scraped up a little bit, but she was not hurt. But she was surrounded by this gore and covered in blood. When we got there, she was like, she wasn't even screaming. Right? The girl who virtually cut her head off, she was still thrashing around. But so my job was to be these are dead. That one we have to say, cut that one out. And then I would have to negotiate everything with everybody to get it done, as because our captain worked in, she was a lieutenant in the Ithaca Fire Department, so that was her day job. She only showed up at night. That lady never slept. She was an adrenaline junkie. Anyway, so, and I wasn't, the lieutenant. I just drove the truck, and I was, the first responder, EMT, and I was the guy who, I was like the shrink. I was the person who could take care of everyone's, so they could work at their optimum and not be in shock. And so, and we, I had them do all kinds of little exercises and stuff. And anyway, so what happened was, we had sheets to cover people. So, we covered the people up in sheets, but they bled so much that the sheets went from white to like really bloody raw shock. So I went and got tarps, green tarps, and that were in the truck, and covered them in that. So the little girl couldn't see her mom with the thing right through. How's mine? So she was like not looking. and that which was a good thing because she didn't really see it. I mean, she's covered in blood, but she really didn't see. She didn't turn around and look at everything and really. So, so I basically first thing I had him do was chop off the door of where the little girl was, right? So she wasn't feeling trapped, right? And that was something easy. We just chopped the hinges and the column to the roof and then pried it up and then pulled the door out. And we did that first. And after we covered everybody up, and I just kind of got her to, she couldn't really move, but I got her to move her torso. I said, look at me. And I said, do you have a daddy? And she goes, no, he died. And I'm going, no mommy, no daddy, no sisters. And I said, listen, what do you remember your dad? Well, he loved me so much. I said, I'm going to be just like, you're my little girl. I'm your daddy, right? And I'm going to be here with you until we get you out and take you someplace where you can calm down, relax. Well, I'm fine. I said, no, you just went through a horrific accident. It's going to take some time to get you to be fine. But you're doing a great job. You're really brave. You're really, And so my daddy was a soldier. And I said, well, he'd be proud of you. You're being great. I'm going to start to cry. So we got her out of there. I won't go through those gory details. And I basically, Cornell had everything. So they had a great experimental hospital, kind of everything Cornell had. It was amazing. So, I took her there because I knew they would treat her much better than if I took her to the general hospital at the emergency room. She'd just be traumatized by that. These guys had a better hospital than that, and there was nobody there. So, and I stayed with her that rest of that afternoon into the night. I didn't get a little beep on my phone, we didn't have phones, but my beeper, and it was all good. So anyway, long story short, about 2 or 3 years later, I left Ithaca, and about 15 years later, I went to visit her. Not her, but Ithaca, and my friends. And I was at the big box store, and this woman comes up to me and hugs me and says, Daddy. And I'm going, And I looked at her little daughter, and it was a spitting image of what she looked like when she was in that car. And I knew exactly who she was. And she was crying, and she goes, this is the man. Susie, this is your other grandfather, right? Because the reason you're alive is this man. And when you hear people say things like that, and that's what life's about. I didn't do any of that to know 15 years later this was going to happen. I would be, it wasn't transactional, and it wasn't even my job. I did not look at, volunteer firing as my job. What it was that house was my clan. And we were always, it was like we were in the military, we were always watching each other's backs. And majority of these people were all in the military, and they were all adrenaline junkies. And they all had PTSD, and the only way they could really kind of face it, that's why old guys constantly talking about the war, because it's the only way they can relate. So I did it for 3 years, and I wasn't an adrenaline junkie, and I moved out of Ithaca. But that was something really good I did. A lot of people learned a lot of skill in that. I could sew people up. I could put a line in. I can do tracheometry. I haven't done these things in almost 30 years. I need a little practice, but I know how to do it. Worst, push came to shove, I could do it. Meaning I sewed somebody. 15 years after that. I was at a place where this rich woman, and I was a filmmaker, wanted me to film her birth. She was going to have a natural birth in a pool. And I was a doula, And so I said, no, you don't want that. I said, no, I want that. No, you don't want that. No, I do. I said, listen, it's too intimate. It's too personal. Well, that's why I want it. I said, no, you don't want it. You won't even want to look at it. And so, but funny that, how could I say no? She was such a dumb horse's patootie that, sure, okay. I tried to warn her. I tried to tell her. I tried to give her the 411, but she didn't want to listen. Didn't want to listen. So I go there and I first meet her, and this person is like totally woo woo. Oh, she'll be holding crystals and she'll be. I said, so are you a nurse? You a nurse practitioner? You a doctor? You a, licensed um, midwife? No, no, no. You have insurance? No. You bonded? No. So I go to the rich place. I said, listen, she has no medical experience. You know, she has no insurance. And she has no. Well, I can afford it. But no insurance. Like if she kills you, how could she kill me? It's a natural plot. I mean, this woman just would not listen to any level of reason, right? And so, you know, okay, so I take some film of them, and the woman who was the midwife did not want to be filmed. Didn't want her face or personage, her name, her anything, her location, any of that mentioned. So we didn't. And again, I said to Lady, listen, she didn't want to be filmed. She didn't want to say who she is. She didn't want, then why do you think? And so, oh, she's just protecting. Oh, anyway, day comes, right? And basically, the woman totally screws it up, right? And she nearly kills the baby, and she tears the uterus, and so the bathtub just turns. The blood comes between this lady's legs, and I got the camera on the tripod and bright lights. I really lit it up like in an operating room supposed to. And the blood just kind of went through the water. It was like Jaws, and that woman took off like that, left the rich lady in the blow up, pool to her own devices, and her husband like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I? I said, get on 911. Don't call 911. Don't call 911. So I went over the phone, click, 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 and I knew I'm a volunteer fireman, so. And this is years later in another city, but once you are that, you kind of you meet somebody and I used to do, so I knew pretty, and every time I would go into a town, the first people I would go check into is the cops and the firemen and, the courts, to get buddies with them, right? Because whatever I was going to do usually ended up going through them. So 911, and then star, and then another couple of numbers, and I got a dispatcher I actually frigging knew. I said, hey there, Mildred, it's me, Al, and at this address, and there's a woman who was having birth, and she has a ripped uterus, and she needs da 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 da, and they should go to this hospital because, Bob is on duty right now, and he will be able to take care of this, no problem. And she goes, well, she'll bleed out before. I said, no, I'm going to take care of it. So I deliver the baby, right? And, cut off tie the umbilical. And then I kind of cut it off closer to the uterus. And in my electrical bag, I have hemostats. So when I'm working on an electric circuit, I can just clip things together and it'll hold it together. Well, I, before the girl got in the pool, I got a whole bunch of stuff ready, towels and sheets and alcohol and you name it. All the stuff a doula is supposed to get together, plus a big pot of soup. So I clamped her up so she stopped bleeding. And, I kind of washed her down with that red stuff when you're getting operated on. I forget what they call that stuff, but it's better than alcohol and it doesn't sting. And it's like a cross between hydrogen peroxide, alcohol, but it's this red stuff. It's like iodine, but it's what they kind of paint you up when they're operating on you. And I had a bottle of that, and I kind of, you know, you know, got her all taken care of, and kind of, packed her up with gauze. And just as I was finishing, the firemen arrived. They put her on a gurney and they checked her all out and said, "You did a good job, Al." And they took her to the hospital. Right? And so, you know, the and I had video of everything, right? So, I pack all my stuff up in my car, and I go there, and there's the cops, and they go, "Al, what happened?" And I explain. I said, "Oh, look at it on the video." Back to the replay, and they go, "Oh my God!" And the doctor who had her in the operating room and kind of did the microsurgery of sewing her up so she wouldn't be, so she could have another kid. And they're all looking at it. Goes, "Who is this woman?" I said, "She wouldn't let me photograph her. She wouldn't give me her name. You'll have to get that information from the lady in there." And so the only way they got the information was that they were going to, uh, you know, indict the pregnant woman because um, all during the video, she's going on and on and on how it's her choice, it's right. And when I asked who's this woman, she would say, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you. I'm protecting the sanctity of the sacred blah 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 blah." So, the guy says, "Can I make a copy of this?" I said, "Yeah, you can have it." I said, "No, make a copy. I want the original." So, and so they basically rolled the, VCR in with the TV and played her the video and said, "Lady, this is straight up. I mean, the only reason you're alive is that person who you're like bad mouthing saved your life. That's the video. He did everything frigging right. He is, he's an EMT. He's a first responder. He's surgically trained. You know, why didn't you listen to him?" Because earlier on in the video, he's saying, "Hey, this woman's not licensed, not insured. There's something wrong. You want to get a real, midwife." And that was the end of whatever. And never got paid for that video. And when I went in and I said, "See what I said about the video? It's just a bit too personal." But this is the human race. That experience reflexes to what's going on with Nouveau 19. And it's so obviously that it's a biological weapon because the way it's coming back, it's not referring, like Connie was right, when the summer comes, it'll go away. Should have. Didn't. It's engineered. It's going to be with us this way for at least 3 years because it wants to break the fabric of the already broken society we are. This is a good thing. Now, is there are a whole bunch of chuckleheads out there, just like that lady who was so set in her ways of having this, spiritual experience giving birth. There are a whole bunch of people who, the deep state, we have to kill it, we have to break it, we have to, burn, the guys who are, burning things at these Black Lives Matter things aren't black people. It's paid provocateurs. I've been involved in social activism long enough to have provocateurs bump into me. And the only way you can get rid of them, like when we did the Stop Sharm campaign, we had a ton of those guys, spying on what we were doing. Well, they didn't have to spy. We put everything in a newspaper. We were like glass, And what we would do, I could spot them a mile away. As soon as they would kind of walk onto the site, because we had this long-on life community where we were in front of that plant 24/7 for 7 years. That showed and all we did was play music, feed people, babysit. We had solar gardens. We were making solar electricity. We were showing, people how to, that they didn't need this new plant, right? And we educated Suffolk and Nassau County and Connecticut and New York. We educated 6 million people. So in those 7 years, we had like 6 million. It was like going to Disneyland. And that's how you got to do it. And so much so, the guys who were working on that plan came and they would kind of drive up because they drove by it, and they would drive by it, and then they would throw a manila envelope out at us, and it would be documents from Chase Manhattan Bank and you know Rothschild Banking and Babs and Wilcox and GE, and about how this is terrible. And it always ended up, it doesn't matter, our boy, it doesn't matter what the Supreme Court says, doesn't matter what the NRC says, because Ronnie will just sign an executive order. And he did. He signed 11 executive orders. I mean, we took things to the Supreme Court and won, and he just signed an executive order. And the more and more he did that, the more and more it became obvious that the American people were just a sacrificial lamb to the corporate, bull of blood. And if you go to XRA TTED, just as Ride has, I really get into that. I get into everything in legend. I'm really now because, and it makes no sense. Well, good luck with that. And I have a, what do you call that? When you introduce what you're writing about, a preface. So I have a 2-page preface. Basically, it says, if you're white and you don't think you're racist, well, maybe you should be reading this. If you are, somewhat comfortable in your situation, and you think what I'm talking about when I talk about all our relations is stupid, well, maybe you shouldn't read this. And that's the prefaces, beginning. Anyway, so we're at this very interesting time. So if the guys, and I can understand the passion of Black Lives Matter because, so I was involved in the No Nukes campaign, when Ronald Reagan wanted to put the Pershings on hair trigger in Germany. So, that missile would hit Moscow within 3 minutes instead of 45 minutes. There was no way of stopping it once it blasted off. And it carried a hydrogen bomb. That was like a mixture for, it's just like Joe Kennedy, his cousin of the same name under Robert Kennedy's. I don't know if this guy is the same guy. I don't think it is. When I went to school, I had a roommate, Joe Kennedy, Joe, Robert Kennedy's middle son. And he was a turd, And he, I used to read and 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 read. And, whatchamacallit, I'd read into the night. And Joe wanted me to go to sleep so he could masturbate, right? And I would, okay, I'd turn the light off. I'd wait about 15 minutes, pretend I was snoring, and then he would start whacking off. And I, just before he would come, like, Joe, how you doing over there? How you doing over there? And he would like, So this Joe Kennedy in Congress, it might be the same guy, but he looks so young. I mean, he shouldn't, he should look like me, but he looks like he's 30. Which he voted for the authorization of a nuclear weapon to be manufactured, so Trump could, hold it in his holster and threaten countries, and not, he could nuke something without having to throw the whole, strategic arm at somebody, right? Be surgically. But once you take something out with a nuclear weapon, there ain't no surgical anything with a nuclear weapon. So, and that's, and he said it was a mistake. He didn't know he was voting yes. He thought he was voting no. I mean, really? I mean, that right there would make a great commercial to get rid of you as a congressman. Don't even know the difference between yes and no. And that's because these guys are bought. They're purchased, and then they get blackmailed by guys like Jeffy and the Pizza Boys, Oh, so what are we saying here? The mezzanine is always looking upon you. Yeah, the day out of time belongs to you, much like Do you have it? Yep. Let's see. And life goes on. Yep. And life goes on. You know, and tomorrow and tomorrow. Now the thing about it, do you want to live a life of tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, or do you want to live a life where you are co-creating with love? You know, and that's kind of what. If you read Whitley Strieber's books, you know, he goes on about the Greys or this crew of people who spend all this energy becoming so, you know, scientific because they lost their ability to be feeling anything emotionally. And they, you know, why they take us is that they have this experience and they want us to be able to, you know, ascend that golden thread in our evolution, spiritual evolution, because they're going to be taken along because they're stuck. And they need somebody like us to help them go up that thread. But we won't be able to do that if we wipe ourselves out. And we're doing a pretty good job at that, right? So, and what comes after what's right now? Right now is the best chance of humanity doing something good. You know, this 19 and, you know, Black Lives Matter and all that can, you know, actually be the springboard to get us, you know, to start to realize the we and me, right? Again, go to XRATTED and read Legend 10 and then come back and let's talk to us like, you know, good old ride here, you know? And I like it that ride is being, you know, being fun with his comments about it because I know he read it just by what he's saying. You might be going, huh? But you could be in on the code. See, actually, Ride has figured out the code of my writing. And that was the same kind of code that I talked about learning about at Trinity with the old firm. Right? Oh. So it's time for me to move on and do the few little errands I have because I have to do it today because from today until I get my Social Security check, I will pretty much just be in the deep green, you know, in the hammock, letting the breezes hit me, puttering around, fixing this and that. I found a bunch of fireworks yesterday. I lit them off at night. That was fun. I had 3 rockets that, you know, did a pretty nice exhibition. And, you know, some of those Roman candle-y things that were a little whippy, but it was fun. It's about just at darkness, you know, about. But there was a moon out, so it wasn't really dark, but it had already gone behind the hill, but it was kind of, you know, lighting the sky above me. So, anyway, so that's enough of the stream of consciousness for you all. I love you, so let's say a little prayer, and every day in every way, let us take the peace of the earth and make it stronger through love's co-creation. So we will all be the we and me as one love. And Father, Sky, Mother Earth, and Holy Spirit, hear our prayer. Protect us, indeed. Enlarge our territory. Put your hands upon our shoulders and keep us from evil so we will do no harm. Aho. Love you guys. Catch you later. And, you know, I'll jump in the mornings if I find enough money to come at breakfast, but probably not till maybe Saturday of next week or sometime sooner or later. Okay? Okay.